How y'all doing? This is Chris with Chris's Comments. Site talking about common sense on common ground, no matter what the subject. Now, today's subject is about what I do for a living. Somebody was asking me, how do I earn a living doing this job? And is it do you really make a living, and can you really earn can you really earn a living? And it's, yeah. And is there techniques and all this other stuff? What do you do, and what are your hot spots and all this other stuff? And I felt the need to throw this out there just simply because we don't really know what the next agenda is going to be society-wise, what the next issue is going to be. We got the government going back to their ordinary stuff with climate change and, trade and trade wars and the upcoming trade talks with China. And on a social level, everybody's breathing a sigh of relief after Chauvin wound up getting convicted. There's still 3 other cases of a cop killing a person, and nobody's gotten to it yet, and that's fine. So in between these issues and the topics, I'm coming back to what somebody asked. This was on Facebook, though, on that Facebook or Reddit, I can't remember which chat site. But so what I'm going to do is just post this right here, and then maybe I'm going to do this recording and then post it to the other sites. How to do it? Sorry. There's when you first start, you're pretty much told to try the downtown area and the airport. And those are good because that's what I started out doing in June of 2017 when I first started. I drove around quite a bit, and, I thought if I just made sure that I made myself available, that business would always come. And to a certain extent, it did. What really helped out after taking different venues and figuring out, God, why am I so broke and all this stuff, was learning how my city breathed, so to say. In the springtime and the summertime, you got a lot of schools that have no work. And one of the quick things to pick up on, as well as stop doing to get back to work, is this rideshare and delivery thing. So there's tons of more drivers out there, which is fine for the customer because there's one around every corner. But it makes it a little bit of a complication for us drivers to do it for a living. It's a little challenging. Now, I fell in love with this job because I've never had a problem with driver jobs, and I've never had a problem with associating with complete strangers. In this job, I get the best of both worlds. But I still wound up with a dilemma of trying to get work. So I did a little bit of experimenting. And I tried different work shifts. I used to get up in the late morning, early afternoon, and I'd head out to work, and I'd work into the night and then come back. And it was fun because it was doing my own thing. I slept in late while the rest of the work hustled and bustled. The rest of the world had to hustle and bustle. But, don't say but, however, certain parts of the year, everybody's doing that. And that's a problem. So, what I did was sleep in later and started working in the evening, and I worked overnight, and that helped out a lot. And it wasn't until then that I started to realize there's a couple of patterns here. There's a pattern here of people that use Rideshare. And I've got it down to a 24-hour system now. Bear with me, because it's kind of a lot. And I'm going to zip through it. 24 hours. Okay? Check it out. From 5 to 9 here in San Antonio, Texas, from 5 to 9 is the morning rush hour where I take everybody to work. 9 to 10, and then from 9 to 10 till 2 is the brunch, lunch, and late lunch crowd. Okay? And then from 2 to 3 all the way up to about 7 p.m. here in San Antonio, Texas, because it's Central Time. It's a Central Time zone. Till about 7 p.m., 2 to 3 till about 7 p.m., I'm taking everybody from work back home. Okay? And around 7 p.m. to about 10 is the late night dinner crowd. And once COVID gets knocked out and the pandemic is over, 6 to 7 is around the time that you're taking people to the games, the plays, the concerts, and whatever else that there is in between. Before the pandemic, there were local theaters that were doing musicals also. And you were taking, senior citizens or the young actor, the young drama lover to there, and then the movie theaters, and places to hang out and all this good stuff. But that's all around 6 to 7 o'clock when shows and games are starting. Then comes 9 o'clock to 10, 11 o'clock when the shows, games, plays, musicals, and concerts are finally finishing. Okay, you're taking them home. Now around 9, 10, 11 o'clock, you're also taking people out to the clubs. Whoever's not going to the game or the show or whatever, the concert. You're taking them to the nightclubs. Okay? And you're doing that till about, 11 or 12. It's around 1:30, 1 o'clock till 3 o'clock, closing time, that you're taking them home. Okay? 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock. 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock, you're taking home the bartenders and the waitresses and the waiters and the strippers. And you're taking them home, but you're also taking workers, the railroad, city workers, construction workers, bakers, and food preppers to their jobs. And then, lo and behold, you're at 5 o'clock in the morning again, taking the whole city, when the whole city's woken up, you're taking them to work. Now, in between those times, in between those rushes, there's an opportunity for a break. There's an opportunity for lunch or coffee or whatever that you need in order to, to regroup, to get your second win. And a little bit of markers, like when you're doing something like this, and yet you're still seeing lane lines. That's sort of a cue to take a break, And where to start? Okay, now that you've got all of these situations going on in a 24-hour period, at least here in my town, you've got in your city the exact same type of environment. And it's up to you to find out where it is to start that's best. Okay? And what I mean by that is sometimes it's heading out to the highway and driving up and down, which is something that I do. I do quite a bit. And that's how you'll get your thing. Another way, hotels. Keep yourself in the vicinity of the hotels in your area, especially early in the morning when they have to catch a flight. A lot of them are like that early in the morning, or a train, depending on what's more productive in your city. Some people just need a ride to the subway. Some people need a ride to the actual Amtrak. And, then there's others that need a ride to the bus station. And then there's the ones that need a ride to the airport. And it's usually airport that's going to be the one thing that you're picking them up for. Another thing, ironically enough, is to ignore the downtown area or even the airport and start in your own neighborhood. It sounds funky. But when I first started in 2017, there weren't that many people using it. Despite the fact that there were plenty of people that were saying, thank God you're here. Thank God you made yourself available to use. So around the time, the next year, the following year, I started doing the overnight, the third shift in 2018. After 2017 started to become, have complications, 2019, I started to make myself available starting in my own neighborhood. There's this one street called Culebra, which goes all the way to a highway loop called 410, another highway loop called 1604. It was an outer loop, a much larger highway loop that goes around the city. And my area is close to 1604 loop and Culebra Road. So I started there, going up and down and just, coasting, instead of going straight to the downtown area or all the way to the other side of town where the hotels were. There weren't as many as there are now in 2021. But 2019 looked very prosperative. So 2020 was going to look even, just as busy, just as profitable. Of course, the pandemic threw that out the window, but that's okay. But that's beside the point. Coming back to what the city saw and what all these investors saw, setting up all these hotels, and now community neighborhoods are actually being developed. They were being processed. So I saw this as virgin territory for me to try to get everybody hooked to the rideshare. And so I actually stopped going to the main areas, which was the downtown area and the airport area. I stopped going there altogether. And I went to the outskirts. That's what this is. That highway back there is part of Loop 1604. And all the cars that you might see in the background, that's where I'm at right now. And I'm still doing this mostly because I still I think I've committed that to getting this side of town hooked onto the rideshare, but also because of the fact that I just started before the pandemic, so I still have a little bit more ways to go, and that's fine because I'm still earning a living. And I strongly suggest you who are in your own cities who are thinking about doing this, try it that way also. By all means, don't neglect, your busy areas. If you have in a smaller town or a larger town, a larger city, because technically we're only the 7th largest. If you happen to be in a bigger city, by all means, stick to the part that's more profitable. But don't be afraid to do a different shift. Don't be afraid to do a different location, particularly that might be beneficial in the long run, while you're putting yourself out there. You're making yourself available. A lot of that is really what it is when it comes to rideshare. It's just making yourself available, and some rides are better than others and all this other stuff. The last 10 minutes, I'm going to talk about not your neighborhood or my neighborhood, the Self neighborhood, but neighborhoods in general. Okay? Every neighborhood has more or less a very busy strip. So if you find yourself on the east side, don't be afraid to try going through up and down that strip. Okay? And be mindful. A lot of people say be mindful of how much you're spending and how much gas you're using and how much you're spending, and all this good stuff. One good way to do that is by studying the time. There's a section to the north that is hilly. It's hilly. It's called the Stone Oak area. And it's just outside of San Antonio and right next door to a county called Bulverde, which is its own town. It's its own county and its own town. A lot of people that live up in Stone Oak area usually don't like to go into San Antonio because of the congestion and it's just too busy and all this other stuff. They like to take their business to the county next door, which is Bulverde. And that's a lot of trips to and from in that particular neighborhood. Now keep in mind, they are their own community and they've got just about everything that we have here in San Antonio. So you're going up and down these hills to get to a place that could take 12 minutes to get to and, a few miles to get to. And you'll get a fare that goes just around one of the hills and it's 4 minutes, and you're getting paid for 4 minutes after for driving 12 minutes and X amount of miles for a 4 minute 2 mile drive. And that's a pretty low fare. However, much like the downtown area, where it's mostly tourists in the downtown area, that's pretty much the normal. That's the norm down there in the downtown area. So what you're doing is just changing it from the downtown area to a hilly environment, okay, with the same type of profits. That being said, that's the worst case scenario. The best case scenario for something on the outskirts like that is you're either going to a neighboring county, which could be Bulverde, where then you're looking at a little bit more mileage and time being paid, if not going to an entirely different city outside that community into an entirely different county. And a lot of them still make trips down to San Antonio. You're just going to see more of the inside the community, inside the hills trips. Okay, you're just going to see a little bit more of that. No differently than the downtown area where everything is downtown just for those tourists. Okay. Another neighborhood is to the south of us. It's called Military Drive. Okay, it was a long strip of traffic, long street that goes from the south side to the west side, where a total of 4 Air Force bases are spread out. Okay, and it's really cool because you've got a whole crap load of neighborhoods from the south side to the west side just on Military Drive. Now, those of you who are not in San Antonio, you might actually be familiar with this kind of stuff being an industrial town or a military like San Antonio. You might have some kind of neighborhood that's just like that. And, you know, different highways and different, different forms of neighborhoods, of cost neighborhoods. Some in the $100,000, some in the $200,000, $300,000 houses, and some in the projects. There's some parts where there's poor people, you know. And you've got a variety of all those people that need to get somewhere. They all need to get from point A to point B, and they all need to get there now. So you make yourself available to all of those needs just by staying in your neighborhood, or in that neighborhood if you wind up in that neighborhood. You see what I'm saying? And it's easier to know when you're going to get a catch. So figuratively speaking, it's easier to know when you're going to get a catch depending on what type of town it is, that segment is. If it's a bunch of factories, well, you know, there's a lunch period, there's a beginning period, there's a end of shift period. Okay. If it's a factory that has a second or even a third shift, you know full well there's going to be somebody that's going to need a ride. You know what I'm saying? That's going to need a ride to go home. And you're going to want to look for them more on the closing time, because trying to figure out where there are to punch on, that's different. That's different. You could get people from that very same neighborhood. You could get some worker from that industrial site that's all the way to the other side of town, you know, or in a neighbor county. Okay. So, that's pretty much what you're doing. Start with your neighborhood. Start with your own neighborhood. Don't be afraid to check out, to cruise other neighborhoods. You've got flat area, you've got hilly, you've got inner city, and you've got surrounding counties. Okay, they all need to get from point A to point B, and they all need to get there now. You figure out how your city breathes, and yeah, you can make a good living. You can actually, you know, do good. There's a lot of people that say, well, nighttime is best because of the tips and the gratuities. True. Nighttime is pretty damn awesome. You know, you got the ones that, you know, they'll throw 20s at you because they're still living the nightlife. They're living big, they're gangsta and all this other stuff. And that's fine, you know. But it's not the sure thing, and it's not the only way to make a living. You know, I'm making a living and I'm doing these comment section. I've got time to do comment sections, you know, on YouTube during my lunch break. You know, you might not be able to get that kind of opportunity in the overnight or in the nightlife, because everybody's going to be hustling. Everybody's got to go. You know, you get that, and mind your manners. Keep your hands on your steering wheel, especially when you got a group of party girls. You know, even I have to do it. I'm almost 50, and even I've had to keep my hands on my steering wheel, trying not to make a flirtatious jackass out of myself while the girl on the side is going, what does this look like? And all this other stuff, to asking her girlfriend. And you can't stop and stare, because that's the thing that they could throw at you. You know, hey, I'm asking my girlfriends, not you. You know, you don't want to get stuck in that kind of position. So you got to mind yourself. You got to, you know, just be polite and keep your eyes focused on the lanes. And, you know, don't do that. Don't do the mirror adjustment on the pretty girls back there. You know, don't do that. Just be cool, okay? There's just some challenges that you got to face, and you know, just keep focused on the job. Keep focused on learning how everything breathes and how your city breathes. You know. And I'm running out of time, so I'm just going to leave it with that. Stay focused. Start with your neighborhood. Give it some time and patience, and you'll get there. You'll get there. This is Chris with Chris's Comments, taking a break from every serious political issue to throw out a comment about what's going on in my occupational world. Thank you so much for hearing me out, and I will be posting this on the other sites as soon as I can remember who was the one that was actually asking. I'm gonna try to find him and start off with that one, and then move on to others. I'll post this video out there. Thank you so much for hearing me out, and knowing what's going on, and we'll see what the next issue. We'll see when the next subject comes up. Hopefully it's a saucy one. We'll catch you later. This is Chris, signing out.